What do I think about TAHM KENCH? I think TAHM KENCH should not be a support and should be a top laner. Right now he's both, and I think that if we were to not let him be a support, we could make him a lot stronger of a top laner, which I think would be probably the most fun in the long run for TAHM KENCH. So that's my personal opinion on him. He's kind of a hard character to balance because of how binary he is. Yeah. Captain Gameplay here is telling lies about TAHM KENCH. He's fine both. He's not that hard to balance. I just don't think TAHM KENCH really brings all that great gameplay to bottom lane. And I think that when we've seen people play him and his play rates pan out, we've seen that he tends to get played a lot more in top lane when he's viable up there. And so I just am not really a fan of TAHM KENCH support. I'll admit my bias in that he also makes Senna very hard to balance. So it's kind of those characters as a pair are kind of scary. But from what I've seen from TAHM KENCH, it seems like he has a more vibrant player base in the top lane, and his bot lane gameplay is kind of sus. So that is my opinion of TAHM KENCH. Lol, Senna has never been balanced. We can see a direct correlation of Senna in pro play with the viability of TAHM KENCH support. Now, that said, Senna, I'm not going to say she's a perfect balanced character. She's got a lot of things going on. Recently, this season, for example, her AD carry was pretty nuts after it got bugged with the relic shield thing. So she's definitely been a balanced trouble as well. But yeah, I'm just not really a fan of TAHM KENCH support. I think it's a pretty sus what he does down there. No, you see a correlation of TAHM KENCH and pro play with the viability of Senna. I think that's a little revisionist history, but I think we also both have our own biases here, Captain Gameplay. You're probably very in the TAHM KENCH camp, and I'm very in the Senna camp. So, But the main thing I don't like about TAHM KENCH support is, aside from the whole pro play stuff, is just like, it feels like we still have to balance him for both of those roles, and support just, I don't know, it's kind of like Seraphine to me. It seems like there's just a more vibrant player base for Seraphine as a support versus for TAHM KENCH, there's a more vibrant player base for TAHM KENCH as a top laner. So I wish he could be a bit stronger up there. So yeah, that's thoughts on TAHM KENCH. I think it's reasonable to note in any given like thoughts like this is that that's my own opinion. Obviously, there's different opinions everywhere, so you never know. Do you think Senna could be better supporting marksman long term? Sucks as someone who used to main her that it feels like you were trolling picking her with 90% of AD carries. So the fact with Senna is that she is pretty decent with a lot of AD carries. Like, she's not, outright the best, and she's definitely like really, really good into like characters like, TAHM KENCH, but like the reality of Senna is she is a good support. Like, you are not really trolling if you pick Senna support. Now, that said, literally right now, you might be trolling, because I think one thing that's been really rough for Senna this season is she's been kind of like, she's been balanced around pro play, and like, I think right now, like, especially I'm going to look and like, yeah, she probably is like actually actively bad right now, but like, there's been like, most times with Senna, like, she's generally like a pretty decent support with AD carries, and then tends to be like really, really strong with like some of these like Seraphine or TAHM KENCH picks, which I think creates like complexity in pro play, because it's like, okay, well, we have to balance her for pro, but nobody's picking what they're picking with Senna in pro in solo queue. So if we needed to like do some long-term work there might be some like, we could like be really hardline here. Like, as an example, whenever Senna takes a soul, the enemy takes extra damage on hit. That's who that's really good with? Lucian. Who that's really good with? Jinx, right? So there are like some like, if we really, really wanted to like buff up her power with AD carries, there's ways we could do it to make it so like she has better like buffs with AD carries. But historically, it hasn't really been the case in solo queue for, most of the time, that you couldn't like play with Senna and, succeed with an AD carry on your team. Although literally like right now it might be, because I think in this last year, she's, I think, had a rough time of it with, how she showed back up in pro. And so she's probably, if you're not playing her with like TAHM KENCH or Nautilus at this point, like literally right now, you might be at like a kind of disadvantage. According to RELL mains, you destroyed their champion for its players. I don't know what RELL mains you're talking about, but RELL is like in a significantly better spot than she used to be. This character went from being like one of the most critically unpopular characters in the game, like bottom 3, to like being played and generally like feeling better and more enjoyable to play as well. So I don't know what to tell you. This character went from having one of the smallest player bases in the game to actually having a fairly healthy player base. I would argue as a designer when I play the character that she just feels smoother and more enjoyable to play. So yeah, I just disagree with that assertion. Now that said, anytime we rework a character, there's always going to be someone who liked the old character, 100%. And if you liked old RELL, that's fair. That's fair. We felt that old RELL was at a point where she felt too rough and could not maintain a like real player base. And so we felt we needed to adjust her, and I would argue the adjustments were massively successful. Like, again, she went from being one of the least played champions in League of Legends to having a very healthy player base. And I genuinely think that the designer who worked on RELL did an incredible job and made her feel significantly better to play. So I will stand behind that rework. That said, if you liked old RELL, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying every once in a while we have a character who's just doesn't support the player base we think is it should. Old Aurelion Sol is the same thing. Old Aurelion Sol is a completely new Aurelion Sol is a different character, and if you liked Asol's balls, then you know, power to you. But that character was just, we didn't feel like it had the ability to support like a large enough player base, and so we felt like we needed to adjust it. Now, maybe a second part of this question that someone's saying is, you killed RELL Jungle, and I played RELL Jungle, and like, again, if you liked RELL Jungle, power to you. The reason we killed RELL Jungle is, it's actually a very similar reason to things I've talked about earlier about you need to be able to balance, the off roles are okay as long as you can balance the character for the main role. And the problem with RELL Jungle was it was incredibly overpowered in pro play, causing us to have to nerf RELL for pro play, and it was not played really at all in solo queue. It had like a 0.5% play rate or something, which is critically unpopular, very, very low play rate. And so it was kind of thing where we're nerfing a character for a role basically only pros play her in. And that felt really bad if you were RELL support main. And so the reason we ended up removing RELL Jungle is we wanted to solve the pro play skew issue by taking away a role that very, very few people tended to play. Now, if RELL Jungler was super popular, that would have been different. If RELL Jungler was super popular, like it had a similar play rate, or even like, you know, like a decent play rate, I shouldn't say super popular. If RELL Jungler even had like a decent play rate, we probably would have made like a different evaluation. We would have made like, oh, there's a lot of people playing this. We should figure out how to tune it for pro as opposed to just changing it. But the reason we removed it is just it did not really have much of a player base. And so, yeah, so we felt like we really just wanted to make sure we supported RELL support as well as she could.